Hi, welcome to Barcart Bookshelf, a video series about books and the drinks they inspire. My name is Elias, and today we're talking about our 2-year anniversary. We are 2 years old today, and I am just so blessed and so thankful to all of you audience members out there, all of the authors that we get to cover, all of the publishers who help to support the channel. I'm just tremendously grateful and thankful that I get to share what we do here, making our cocktails and mocktails and celebrating these really wonderful books with all of you out there. And so, to celebrate our anniversary, we've got a couple of things that are going to happen here in this video. One, at the end, so stick around for that, we're going to have an anniversary giveaway. Fabulous prizes! And two, last week I put out a call for questions. And so now we're going to have a little bit of an AMA. You can ask me anything. I've got questions here already, and we'll get those answered. If at the end of the video you've got more questions, you can put those in the comments below, and I'll be happy to answer those as well. But without any further ado, why don't we turn to our audience questions, get into some of the books that we've covered here on Barcart Bookshelf, some of the books that we haven't, questions about drinks and classic cocktails, and a few fun ones too. Really a big thank you to all of you audience members who sent in questions beforehand. So, let's start at the very beginning. A very good place to start. When you read, you begin with ABC, or your best loved and reread childhood books. There are a lot of books that I read growing up and I reread. I broke a number of copies of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, the other Chronicles of Narnia books. My copy of the Bartimaeus trilogy by Jonathan Stroud is in rough shape and held together with like scotch tape because I read and reread those books so much growing up. Slept with books in the bed. You know, when you're a bookish kid, you can be a little hard on a hardcover or a paperback, and I'm really grateful to the books that I still have around from then. But two that I do want to share and celebrate here on screen: my copy of The Hobbit, illustrated by Alan Lee, that I got when I was 6 years old, and have read and read and read many times since, and continue to love and celebrate, especially as we head into cooler weather. It's a book that for me is very autumnal. And my copy of Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke, which I read a bit older than 6. I think it came out when I was just turning 11. And yet it's a book that is profoundly important to me as a reader, as a writer, as a person who moves through the world. A book that I have read many times. As you can see, this is another one that's held together by packing tape and has lost its dust jacket, but just a really sort of important book to me, and one that I look forward to rereading again at some point so that we can talk about it here on Barcart Bookshelf. Our next question is 5 favorites of all time. I am really bad at choosing favorites, just catastrophically bad at choosing favorites. And so I've selected 5 books that are a good way to sort of get to know me instead. Certainly favorites, but I really can't say because there are just so many things that I love, of 5 favorites of all time. But the 5 books that I have chosen to get to know me for our question here I've got a mix of some modern favorites and some classics. We start here at the bottom with Arabian Nights. The edition that I have here is the annotated Arabian Nights, so not only do you get a selection of the stories from this sort of wonder tale tradition, but you get a lot of the scholarly commentary alongside it, some wonderful illustrations and images as well. So just a really beautiful sort of coffee table edition of one of my favorite books for the real fan of the Arabian Nights. So if that's a tradition that you enjoy, this is a great book to check out, and certainly it's a tradition of storytelling that's very influential on me and a powerful favorite. Now, unlocking some of the Barkhart bookshelf Elias lore, the Iliad. Here, this is the translation by Stanley Lombardo. Before I did Barkhart Bookshelf, I was a graduate student in classics. I did my master's thesis on translation alignment of the Iliad. It's an academic tradition that informs a lot of my process in making drinks. This is a really strong translation, a particular favorite of mine. And so Stanley Lombardo's Iliad for our other classic favorite of mine. A SFF classic, science fiction and fantasy classic of the 20th century, A Canticle for Leibowitz. Again, I did translation studies of the Iliad. This is a book about monks in the deserts of the American West, reviving American knowledge. It's a book that I read in high school, was recommended to me, given to me by my grandmother, and one that I continue to treasure. Definitely, if you have not read it, I encourage you to check it out. It's another one that we're thinking about for coverage here on Barkhart Bookshelf, because we love chartreuse, those monk-made liqueurs. Monks are doing monk things. We'll see. Now for two that we've already talked about on Barkhart Bookshelf, right back at the very beginning. Books that are just very important to me. Summer Suns by Lee Mandello, a fellow Louisvillian, a local friend and author. A book that's about being in the South and being in academia. It's a book about desire and hunger and anger and yearning and the sort of haunting of those who are closest to us. It is, it's a book I think about a lot, a book that when I was reading it was both totally familiar to my growing up and totally foreign at the same time. Just a really powerful book. And then the best book that I read in 2017, Amberlow by Lara Elena Donnelly. Weimar, Berlin, kind of. It was a book that was super timely, coming out right when Donald Trump was elected president in the United States, and is about fighting for desire and fighting for selfhood, and also being overwhelmed by the tide of the times, and nightlife, and wanting and thinking about changing worlds. It was a book that I read when I was living abroad, and was sort of desperately sad that I could not go to attend events here in Louisville in my home to celebrate the book, and was fortunate enough to have a copy sent to me. I won it in a giveaway, and so I was still able to read it sort of at the time that it came out. And it's a very important book to me. So yeah, there are five favorites and 5 books to get to know me. All right. Let's see. We'll get another sort of boozy question, a question about cocktails. How did you get into mixed drinks? We're getting the lore here. When I was a senior in college, I made my own liqueurs. We've seen it a number of times here on Bar Cart Bookshelf that we use liqueurs that I've made myself. The raspberry liqueur, the creme de menthe we make ourselves, all of that sort of thing. And so I did that because my mother had done that, and we continue to do that, and made my own sort of innovated cocktails around that, and then just enjoyed the liqueurs on their own. It was later on that I got more into classic cocktails after college, in that first year and a half after college. The first bar book that I bought was Dave Arnold's Liquid Intelligence. If you know cocktail books, that was a bad decision. It's a really great book. It's just super specific, really high-end technique stuff, science-driven. Not a good way to start. The book that taught me how to make drinks, though, is the 12-Bottle Bar. And that really helped to unlock not only a celebration of really classic cocktails, but also thinking about how to work within limitations. So every recipe in this book you can make with just 12 bottles of alcohol. So a number of base spirits, gin and dry vermouth, sweet vermouth, bitters, and triple sec. And so it really gives you a sense of how to start small and expand out. One of the things that we try to do here on Bar Cart Bookshelf is to reuse ingredients, to bring things back time after time in new ways and with new combinations, because it's hard to build up a bar. And I know we have a big bar here on Bar Cart Bookshelf, but it starts with learning how to start small and expand outward. So if you were looking for just a starter book on getting into cocktails, then this is definitely one that I would check out. We have it at the Boston Shaker, the tool and material support for Bar Cart Bookshelf. I've got a link down below, and we'll have links to the videos of all of the books that we've covered already on Bar Cart Bookshelf in the description below, so you can check that out. All right, next question. The best book you've read in 2023. The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez. I can't stop, won't stop talking about this book. I absolutely love it. It's a love story to its blade-dented bone. It is, I think, the most important work of fantasy fiction on the topic of masculinity since Lord of the Rings. I think that it should appear on all of the awards shortlists. I think that it should win awards. I think it is a book that we should be talking about in 30 years. It is a profoundly powerful and moving book. A book that is pushing the genre forward, challenging the sort of conventions of the genre while understanding them completely and entirely. A book that can't do the things that it does without a deep appreciation for and understanding of the conventions of epic fantasy. I can't recommend it highly enough. We did a mocktail for it back in January, and it's a truly wonderful, wonderful book. Next question. The most beautiful book you read you bought in 2023. So I bought a number of beautiful books with maps, with beautiful interior illustrations. But in thinking about this question, I wanted to think about the interiority of the book a little bit. And so for that, I have chosen The Saint of Bright Doors by Vajra Chandrasekhara. It is not out until next Tuesday, so I still have my advance copy, not my hard copy. I'm really looking forward to seeing the hardcover when my copy arrives. It is a book that we'll be talking about in more detail soon, but one that I do want to sort of tease and to celebrate in these sort of last few days that we can pre-order it. It is a really lovely book. It is a book that is sort of painted in watercolors on the brain, both with a strong sense of place and a strong sense of otherworldliness. It is an intimate character study. It is just a truly lovely book, an exploration of the relationship between family and selfhood, and one that I am really grateful to have read early, and one that I found moving and beautiful, and so one that I am excited to have as a hardcover that I bought as well. So maybe that's a little cheating on that question, but The Saint of Bright Doors, highly recommend. It'll be on bookshelves next Tuesday, the 11th. All right. So, some technical questions now about the process of Bark Bookshelf, what we do here, how it all works. What aspects of the book do you look for to come up with drinks? So, I've talked about this some on social media. I'm excited to talk about it here. There are all sorts of things, all sorts of markers that I look at when I'm reading to build a drink. I look at what is the vibe of the book. You know, are we austere? Are we lush? How rich can I get? Just to think about what the sort of vibe of the drink is going to be. So we really view this as an act of translation, of turning the book into a drink, and vice versa. I also look at these sorts of things that characters eat, the ways that they smell, so if they're using like a lavender perfume or rose or something like that, then that's an element that I can sort of take and write in my little notebook as I'm reading and think about how things all work together. Sometimes we're really driven by setting, as we were the other week with The Surviving Sky, which is these sort of, they've got these floating cities, and so it's all very vegetal, very plant-oriented, or in one of our early episodes for the final volume in the Song of Shattered Sands series by Bradley Beaulieu. We were really influenced by one of the characters, this sort of honey-tongued king, and so that honey and that royal quality came to the fore. And so there are just lots of different aspects that all come together as I'm reading. Sometimes I'm looking at the cover, I'm like, ooh, that's very blue. I want to do something fun and blue with that, or rich and red with that, because I know it's going to pop, and because I know that there are going to be aspects of that blueness, of that redness, what have you, in the book when you're reading it. Next question. Let's see. How do you choose books How do I choose what books to read? How do I choose what books to cover? I spend a lot of time on publishers' websites. I sort by release date. I read the back copy of things. I, have favorite imprints of mine, places, books that you sort of see again and again here on Barcart Bookshelf, like Erewhon, who published Kalina the Soothsayer by Elijah Kinch Spector that we really loved back in January, or The Sleepless by Victor Manibo, or The All-Consuming World by Cassandra Call. And so I pay attention to what they're doing, or places like Tor.com, or Neon Hemlock, and then I sort of think, okay, is this going to work within a season? Thinking seasonally about what's the sort of vibe, what's the feeling. I want a June book to be in June. I don't want a December book to be in June because I want to make a December drink for a December book. And it's not necessarily a book that comes out in December. It's a book with the vibe of December. So like chilly books, it's hard to do a book with a snowy forest, even if you want to read it, even if it comes out in July here on Barcart Bookshelf, because we want, with those sorts of books, something rich, something hearty, something sort of heavier and richer, as opposed to something, set in the desert or in the tropics, where we want something a little zippier, a little zingier, a little brighter. And of course, those ideas sort of move and shift as we go along. Sometimes in February, all I want is to be someplace warm. And so I read a book someplace warm, and I make a drink someplace warm. And so, yeah, it's one of those things that, like what I pick up on in a book changes, how I choose the book changes as well. And then we also do themed months. So if I'm thinking, all right, I know October we're always going to do horror and spooky books. I'm looking from about January at what books are coming out, what's going to be exciting, what's going to sort of suit my taste, and build the calendar, the schedule from there. And then, of course, sometimes a book comes along and it just surprises you. And you think, oh, wow, I have to talk about it. I have to talk about it. At the start of June, The Keeper 6 by Kate Elliott did that same sort of thing for me. I bought the book and read it thinking, okay, it's a novella. It's something that I can read sort of in between so that I'm having a break and I'm not thinking about drinks. Because sometimes, we think about a lot of drinks. We read a lot of books. It's nice to just have something that you read and you enjoy, and it isn't necessarily a good fit for Barcart Bookshelf. But then it was, and I needed to talk about it. And so it just sort of snuck its way into our calendar. And that happens, more often than I think it will. And it's always really exciting when it does, because it's like meeting a new friend who you just immediately click with and connect with. There are lots of different ways of finding books, but a lot of prep work in advance, thinking months ahead. I have lists of books that I'm looking at in 2024, and even a few in 2025, because it's exciting to see what's going to come. It's exciting to celebrate our favorite authors as well. All right. The hardest cocktail to make and the easiest. The hardest cocktail that we've made in the last year is probably the Blue Moon for Mia Moss's Mai Tais for the Lost. It was difficult for a couple of reasons. One, we're using the seaweed syrup in there, and so making that seaweed syrup, getting the nori seaweed into our simple syrup was a little bit of a challenge and a fun sort of experiment to find the balance on, but also it's a drink that has this beautiful blue curacao float on top, and so making sure that that float is going to look nice as you drink it and as you sort of prepare the cocktail was a bit of a challenge, and one that I think worked really well. So, yeah, Mai Tais for the lost. Easiest, the HMS Lyric for Freya Marsk's A Restless Truth, we talked about in November. The whole sort of trilogy that A Restless Truth is in, the last binding that started with A Marvelous Light, is a gin-based menu, and so I knew going into it that I was going to do something with gin, and Maud and Violet, the two primary characters in this volume, just sort of leapt off the page at me. So as A Marvelous Light is sort of a riff on a classic gin cocktail, the Tom Collins, it was really easy to come up with a riff on a classic gimlet for A Restless Truth. And little preview, we're going to have a riff on another classic gin cocktail for the final volume of the Last Binding trilogy, A Power Unbound, when that comes out later this year. So you can all keep your eyes peeled for that. So just nice, easy, breezy, leapt right out on the page for me. All right. Best drink I've ever made, or favorite drink I've ever made. So, of all time on Bar Cart Bookshelf, the Chain the Lash for The House of Always by Jen Lyons. It's one that I make all the time. It's fun, it's blue, it's bubbly. It's this wonderful mix of sort of bittersweet and bright in this sort of aperitiki tradition. So I absolutely love that one. My favorite mocktail is The Warrior Monk for She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan. It was a drink that I thought was going to require more tweaking as I was recipe testing, and then it didn't. It just worked immediately, and it did exactly what I wanted it to do, and captured the vibe of the book, I think, pretty strongly. It's really refreshing, but also very sharp and dark mocktail, smoky and vinegar tang and molasses depth. So, yeah, that is an easy and a recurring favorite, and I look forward to reading the second volume in the duology later this summer, He Who Drowned the World. We are definitely talking about it. For the last year of Bar Cart Bookshelf, the most recent year, the Edgemont Cooler for Dead Country by Max Gladstone. Another highball in the summer and the spring. I just really love those refreshing, bubbly highballs, long drinks that you can have out on the porch and read and sip on. That mix of rye and sherry as a sort of prelude to some reading that I'm doing now of weird Western stuff. Just really works for me and is a favorite of mine, one that I've made several times since then. Okay. Only a few more questions, and these are some fun ones, and we'll get to our giveaway. If you could only drink one more cocktail or mocktail in your life, what would it be? For cocktails, I am too seasonal. I drink what I like because it's the season that I like it. So right now, I would say a mojito. Again, a really refreshing highball, a classic rum highball, that mint, that lime. It just it's perfect. It's a perfect cocktail. But in October, November, then I might be saying the maple rye old fashioned, because then I want something, stirred and supple and rich and sweet. And then, of course, that's before I even think about my own recipes and the joy that I find in experimentation. But for classics, it would probably be, one of those two. But please don't make me pick. For a mocktail, an iced latte. And in the winter, a latte. I just, I love a good coffee drink. I love lemonade, I love iced tea, but I want that hit of caffeine, that blend of really strong coffee and refreshing milk. All right. What is a gateway drink? We talk sometimes about gateway books, books that you can use as on-ramps to reading more complex or impenetrable books in the genre. I think a good gateway drink, if you're just getting into cocktails, would be a whiskey sour. Just, 2 parts whiskey, 1 part lemon juice, and 1 part simple syrup, shaken up and strained. It's a really easy classic cocktail. It's one that you can make with basically any sort of whiskey, and it's still going to taste good. And it's one that you can then expand upon and experiment with. So you add a float of red wine on top, and it's a New York sour. You add some bitters, and that changes the flavor dynamic. You can play around with that sort of format a lot, as we did for the Greenbone Saga by Fonda Lee a couple of years ago in December of 2021. When I was reading Jade Legacy, the final volume in the series. But if you have not read Jade City, then you can check out the Greenbone Sour, inspired by the Greenbone Saga, and read this really wonderful book of sort of martial artist gangsters in a fictional island at the turn of the not quite 20th century. A real sort of fantasy interested in modernity and interested in complex systems. Plus, it is, I think, the perfect encapsulation, the apotheosis of the trilogy as a storytelling format, and gives this opportunity to take our gateway drink, the whiskey sour, into a new realm, and show the sort of versatility of that format once you get into the idea and into making changes. All right. Couple more questions. This is so much fun. I'm having a great time. Witchcraft that is also a mixed drink. Well, a book that I can recommend for that and a drink is The Once and Future Witches by Alex Harrow. It's a historical fantasy about witches and the suffrage movement in alternative America. Our drink for that was The Three Sisters. It's about this sort of group of 3 sisters, and so we've got a bottle of spirits from all from the same distillery that all are inspired by one of those 3 sisters. It's that shaken sour. Just a very refreshing drink and a wonderfully witchy book. Good for summer and really good for fall. So if you were checking out a fall read and building your fall TBR, I would recommend The Once and Future Witches by Alex Harrow. All right, a video game that I'm most excited to do a drink for. Yes, my book! For those of you who don't know, I have a book of cocktails and mocktails coming out next year in 2024 called Cocktails and Consoles. All of the recipes are inspired by video games, from Tetris to the Zero Escape games to Mass Effect to Pac-Man and Stardew Valley. It's a really fun project to work on, and I'm really excited to share more information with all of y'all as I can. The game that I think I'm really excited to do a drink for, and have already done a drink for, is Hades from Supergiant Games. I have been a big fan of Hades since it came out. I, keep coming back and replaying it, and the drink that we've got for Hades is really fun. It's got a fantastic garnish that's just super indulgent and exciting, and one that I'm always thrilled to get to share my love with a wider audience. And then, a final question, a fun question. What is your favorite tree? I was excited to get this question because the question that I really like to ask when I'm getting to know people is, if you were a tree, what tree would you be? And it's not one that I get asked myself a lot. And so to see this question was really just a lot of fun. My favorite tree is a beech tree. They're, large, they're golden, they are etymologically related to the word for book in English, and they're just really nice shade trees. They do just tree shapes, they get that gnarly, twisty, bendy tree shape, and just have a real sense of tree as tree. And so I really love that. So, that is our AMA. Thank you once again to everybody who submitted questions. I'm so grateful, and I hope that I answered them in a satisfactory way. Without any further ado, why don't we turn to our giveaway. This giveaway is going to run for 2 weeks, so until the 20th of July. And what you need to do to enter is to hit that like button down below and comment down below with your favorite book that we've covered on Barcart Bookshelf. It can be your favorite book that we've covered in this last year, or your favorite overall from the 2 years that we've been doing this. You get a bonus entry if you bring a new subscriber in, and so make sure to tag any new friends that you've brought into our Barcart Bookshelf fold there. The prize is either, you're going to have your choice, fun and exciting, a book that we have covered on Barcart Bookshelf of your choice. If you've been thinking, oh, I'd really love to read The Spear Cuts Through Water, haven't gotten around to it yet, that can be your prize. I will joyously send you, The Spear Cuts Through Water, or Jade Legacy, or Amberlow. Would love to send you any of the books that we've covered here on Barcart Bookshelf. Or, if you're just getting into cocktails, if you're just wanting to start shaking things up at home, then you can choose your prize of an introductory cocktail tool set from the Boston Shaker and get everything that you need to, get shaken and waken up at your home bar. If you choose the book, this giveaway is open internationally. I will send a book anywhere in the world. If you choose the cocktail tool set, that is going to be just in the US. So our eventual winner can make that decision on their own. But you've got 2 weeks to enter, hitting that like button, commenting down below, and I'm really excited to celebrate this anniversary with all of y'all. I have links to various forms of social media, Twitter, Instagram, all of it in the description below, to the Boston Shaker, where we get our tools and ingredients, things like the 12-bottle bar or our cocktail shakers bar spoon, that sort of thing. We have links to videos of the books that we've discussed in today's anniversary episode. And, there you have it. Read the books, try the drinks, let me know what you think, enter our giveaway, and win fabulous prizes. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you so much for a wonderful 2 years together. I am so excited about all of the books that we're going to be talking about over the next year. I am so excited to be sharing more information about my book over the next year. And until next time, cheers.